Okay, reading through Matthew chapter 5, verses 7 through 27 through 30, take 2. I'm doing this because I was told by my beautiful, beautiful wife that going over it was a little bit confusing last time. So I'm going to be a little bit more succinct. I'm going to get to the point, but at the same time, I have to talk about one of the reasons why this passage is very confusing. And a lot of people misuse this passage, but we also have to understand that this passage is important. So let's just go let's read through this together. And I'm going to start with how it there may be something. I'm going to start with a generalization, a general summary of this. Let's see. We are not good enough to meet Christ on our own. We need Christ to meet Christ. Okay? Now, this is something that we come across over and over again is relation this relationship that we need to be with him. So, um, that's not so much a summary of this, but the Gospels in general. We need a relationship with Christ. Now, one of the things that Christ is doing in this section is he's trying to show people that they're not good enough. The NIV perhaps too quickly summarizes this as adultery. Just one word, it says adultery. Well, I mean, really, it's um, the context of this is that people knew adultery was a shameful thing. They, you know, people who committed adultery in Jesus' time would quite likely be put to death if they were caught. Not always, you know, but it's something that could happen. Um, Now, that being said, that kind of puts, you know, adultery on the level of a crime. It's not a crime in the majority of nations today. It's not right, but it's not usually considered a crime. But here it was. So a lot of times people could actively, like they would look down on a murderer, they could look down on an adulterer. So one of the things that Christ is trying to show is that you think you're good, but nobody is really good enough. We're not good enough on our own is really what we keep coming back to uh, from verses 17 through 30 very strongly. Now I'm going to start at 27. But uh, but we don't want to misinterpret a lot of what's going on here. So I just spent quite a bit of time explaining that this is very easily misinterpreted, and I'm going to try to not send people down the wrong way while reading it. Okay, so starting with verse 27, you have heard it said, you have heard that it is said, you shall not commit adultery. But I tell you, anyone who looks at a woman lustfully has already committed adultery with her in his heart. Okay, so this parallels very well with the last passage that talks about murder, where uh, it says, if you call somebody raka, which means empty-headed, or an idiot, you will be in danger of the fires of hell. Okay, so it parallels that last passage, very, very strongly. Now, I don't it's not wrong to find a person attractive. Someone looks at a guy and they're like, "Oh, you're a very attractive person," and someone looks at a girl, it's like, "Oh, you're a very attractive person." And people say, "Hey, let's go to nice places and have coffee and talk about how you are attractive people that I'm attracted to." It's like it's not that and lust are not the same thing. There's innocent attraction that exists. Okay? Now, uh continuing, this is where we find some strong language. Uh let's see. If your right eye causes you to stumble, gouge it out and throw it away. It is better for you to lose one part of your body than for your whole body to be thrown in hell. Now, Christ saves us from hell, so this is obviously a strong metaphor for how important it is to pursue what's right. Excuse me, a little choking there. Um, we would not mutilate ourselves. Sadly, in um, earlier times, darker times, some people read this passage, excuse me, and they would take out their eye. The next one is kind of along the same lines. And if your right hand causes you to stumble, cut it off, throw it away. It is better that you lose part of your body than for your whole body to go into hell. Okay, so again, these are extreme, and this is also hyperbole, because you would have too many people throwing away their hands and eyes, and that's not really what Christ wants you to do. Thankfully, yes, Christ doesn't want you punishing yourself this way. He does. He is trying to express the crowd the importance of of how we can't do these things on our own, and the idea of what is at stake. You know, without a relationship with Him. So yes, he does want, and um, one of the keys to that it actually comes way earlier when he's talking about the people who are religious and they believe are the ones who are really good at being religious. These are the priests. At verse 20, "For I tell you, unless you are as righteous, your righteousness surpasses that of the Pharisees and the teachers of the law, you will certainly not enter the kingdom of heaven." So, kingdom of heaven is very key in all of this. So he's showing us that we are not, on one hand, we're not good enough, you know, to be righteous on our own, and even the small things we do can keep us away from God. So what do we do to fix that? Well, this is where we accept Christ into our life because we need this relationship with God. We need God's forgiveness. So all of these, as graphic as they are, should bring us back to wanting Christ in our life to meet these things. Now, a lot of times he is addressing both people that think, well, I can never be that good, but I'm good enough. He's also addressing people who say, well, I'm not that bad, but I can be good enough. And Christ is erasing all of that. Christ is saying, hey, you think you're better than the people who are doing the really bad, but you all need me as a savior. So that's what Christ is doing. Christ is putting himself forward in all of this to express our need in for Christ in our lives, for God in our lives. So that's one of the reasons why this can get really confusing, because and why you know in past people made the mistake of using this passage on its own to use it as a way of making people feel guilty. And I don't think that's what Jesus I don't think Jesus is doing this with a goal of making people feel guilty as much as a goal of saying it's like, hey, you know what? We I see that a lot of you think you're good enough without God, but you really need God. Okay, I hope that that addresses the confusion. It's a confusing passage, and it's used wrong very very often. But really, it comes down to the adulterers. They need Jesus, and so do we. Okay, you guys take care. I'm going to repost this video and delete the old one because I think that this one was a little bit better, even with the little coughing. I don't have water near me. So, okay. You guys take care, stay safe, and stay inside. God bless. Bye bye.